Dr. Mitchell again. In this video, focusing some more on conditionals, specifically looking at using if statements to choose between different blocks of code based off of the outcome of a Boolean expression. So what are we learning today? In this video, we're going to learn how to actually write conditional statements. These conditional statements are also known as if statements. So we can write them as just an if statement or if block. Or I can write these as if-else statements or if-else blocks. So an if statement, the general syntax of an if statement looks like this, where if I'm doing this in a text-based language, it'll say if, and then in parentheses, a condition that I'm going to evaluate to be either true or false. If that condition is true, then I will do the whatever statements are inside that block of statements, which essentially the same thing. If I do this in a block-based language, I'm going to have if, and then have the blocks that represent the condition.
If that condition evaluates to true, then I will do the block of statements that are associated with that if block. As an if-else, with an if-else, I have two different outcomes that I can choose from. With an if, that's just going to give me one particular outcome. But with an if-else, I can choose from two options. So if this condition is true, then of course I'll do these block of statements. Otherwise, if it's not true, if it's false, then I will move down to the else. I will not do the code that's in the block of statements for the if. I will then move forward to the else and do the block of statements associated with the else. So let's look at what that looks like as an algorithm. Let's say, again, we have our flow chart for determining whether or not the number is in range. I got the number from the user. I'm checking if the number is greater than 0 and less than 10. If this is true, I'm going to display a number
and then tell them goodbye. If it's not true or if it's false, I'm just going to display goodbye. Okay, so I have something that I'm going to do if it's true. Okay, now if I put this in code, of course, now first I'll start off by getting the input from the user and storing that in a variable called number. My if statement is going to take that Boolean expression and put it in the parentheses or the block associated for the if. So in this case, I have if number is greater than 0 and number is less than 10. So I'm checking that range that I had in my flowchart. If that is true, according to my flowchart, I was going to display the number. So my block of code that's associated with the if will say display number. For both situations, even if it's true or not, I'm going to display goodbye. So I can put that outside of my if statement, so that way that code will execute after the if is completed or checked at least to see whether or not that's true or false. Then I'll display the goodbye regardless of the outcome of the if. Now, for an if else, on the other hand, let's say if I look back at my algorithm for determining if a number is a multiple of 3, I was going to get the number from the user and store that in a variable called number. I was going to check if it was divisible by 3 or if number mod 3 equaled 0. If so, I'm going to display one message. If not, or otherwise, or else, I'm going to display this other message. Okay, so I have two outcomes that could occur as a result of this condition. So writing this in code, when I first start off again by storing input, the user input into a variable called number. My if statement is going to check the Boolean expression number mod 3 equals 0. So if the number is divisible by 3 or if it's a multiple of 3. If that expression is true, then I'm going to display the message multiple of 3. Else, so the else is going to represent the other outcome, the alternate outcome of if the if statement winds up being false. If the if statement is false, we're not going to display multiple of 3. I'm going to display that it's not a multiple of 3 as that alternate outcome. So let's get some practice doing this on your own. Let's say I want to calculate the sum of two numbers. If the sum is greater than 100, I want to display 100. Otherwise, I want to display the sum. Pause the video to write the code either in text base or block base for this situation. So, of course, first I want to store the input into a variable called, in my case, I'm going to call it num1. I'm trying to get the sum of both two numbers, so I'm going to do that again for num2. So the user types in both of those numbers, and I store these in two separate variables. Then I'm going to calculate the sum. So I'm going to do num1 plus num2, take the result of that and store it into a variable called sum. Now I'm going to do my conditional check, right? If my sum is greater than 100, like my scenario is asking for, so if this is true, that sum is greater than 100, then I'm going to display 100. If it's not greater than 100, so else, I'm going to display the sum. So just to recap, we can represent these algorithms that had selection by writing conditional statements. These conditional statements or if statements allow us to alter the outcome or what we actually end up doing in our programs based off of the result of a Boolean expression. I can use if statements to just check a condition and see if something is true and do something based off of that. Or I can do if else statements to choose from two different outcomes based off of that condition being true or false. Thanks. See you in the next video where we look some more at using these conditional statements.